Land in East Tennessee, everyone asks about it. This video is specifically about waterfront or lakefront land for sale. What are some of the main data points? So we're talking about average list price, we're talking about average price per acre. We are going county by county of East Tennessee areas with land that is waterfront for sale. If you are interested to know about different bodies of water, what the bodies of water are like, about land that has a home on it, go watch those videos because all of those are available. This is a very deep dive into data around listings that are land with waterfront availability. So that being said, let's dive in and get going. Okay, so today what we are looking at is a snapshot from listed properties for sale, waterfront homes. So a couple things to notice. First of all, this is a snapshot. This is a moment in time. I'm basing this off a day that I pulled data from all available waterfront listings for sale. I also want to point out to you that there are listings all over the state of Tennessee that are waterfront. However, I only pulled East Tennessee related bodies of water and counties. So Douglas, Norris, Tennessee River, like those bodies of water, Tellico Lake, Douglas Lake, Norris Lake, Tellico, all of that, those are included. Tennessee, and that's about 15 total counties. Some have more water than others, but we are looking only at Tennessee. So of all land listings for sale, we're only looking at East Tennessee, I should say. Of all the land listings for sale, so the specific day that I pulled this, there were 4,387 total listings of land for sale. Of those 4,387, 402, or about 9% of the overall listings were listed as waterfront or lakefront. So that's another thing I want to point out to you. This is someone's interpretation of waterfront. This could mean that it's got 100 feet of waterfront, and it could mean that it's got a tiny sliver of land touching the water, okay? Because it's human entered, right? So we are taking the sample. So we're taking all this data to give us a broad picture of waterfront land availability in East Tennessee. Specifically, this came about because I have so many people that call and want to purchase land, which is great. But this is part of a series of just land information in general. And this is, again, specifically about waterfront. So that being said, again, it's person entered, human entered. Okay, so what we're gonna do, number one, is we're gonna go by county. We're gonna talk about available land at the county. We're gonna talk about some quirks about the county. We're gonna talk about just that county specifically. Then, of the 15, we're gonna compare pricing. We're gonna compare pricing per acre. We're gonna compare days on market. We're gonna compare who has the most acreage available on average. We're gonna compare who's on the market the longest. We're gonna talk about who has the least restrictions and who has the most restrictions. So, that being said, let's get going. We're gonna kick this off in Knox County just because Knox County is kind of we say Knox Metro when we talk about East Tennessee. It's Knoxville and surrounding areas. So we're gonna start with Knox County. So for Knox County, available water is Holston, French Broad, Tennessee, Melton Hill, and Fort Loudon. So Melton Hill accounts for very little. Melton Hill is by Oak Ridge. That's just a tiny portion of this, but I don't want to include it because technically parts of Knox County do touch Melton Hill, and actually one of the available listings right now is for Knox County. So overall, of the 402 listings, 14 of those listings, or about 3.5%, are Knox County listings. Now, the average list price for property that is water frontage in Knox County is $751,264. So by comparison, it's one of the higher ones because average list price of land that is water frontage is $392 of the 15 counties that we're addressing today. Also want to make note that on average days on market, so from list to under contract, Knox County is less than the average at 245 days. And then you've got a varying amounts of water. The most popular water would be Tennessee River, And then you do have the Holston and the French Broad. Holston and French Broad, I do have a video about this. They connect together right before downtown, or right at downtown, I should say, to create the Tennessee River. And the Tennessee River flows essentially from 37920, 37914, all the way through 919, 922, 934. I know it's weird that I know these zip codes, but basically pretty much all through Knox County, you've got Tennessee River, except for the very east side, which is going to be either Holston or French Broad. Think Holston Hills Country Club, 37914, and then you've got French Broad, which kind of borders the edge of Knox County, 37920. So that's just a side note. And actually I'm probably opposite, like it's probably more like this way because I think I'm flipped. But so that's Knox County. Knox County average acres for sale 2.37. We're going to look at this, but the taxes for Knox County property tend to be higher. When I am talking about property taxes, I am specifically talking about the land. So again, these do not have houses on them. Once a house is built on them, your property taxes will go up. All right. So next up, Union County. Union County is primarily Norris Lake. Union County, by comparison, much less expensive than Knox County at $144,000. List price on average price per acre at $135,000. Less acreage for sale, about 1.5 acres when it comes to restrictions in Union County. More restricted. Of the 41 listings, which is 10% of all these waterfront listings we're talking about, only one of them did not have restrictions. So Union County, Norris Lake, we're talking that's a more restrictive place when it comes to land availability. On average, about 13% of the total listings had restrictions or had no restrictions. So the fact that only 2% have no restrictions means it's more restrictive. All right, so Jefferson County, we're talking Douglas Lake, Cherokee Lake. That being said, Jefferson County kind of sits between. You've got Douglas and you've got Cherokee, and Jefferson sits in the middle. So Dandridge, Jefferson City, Dandridge, Douglas, Jefferson City, etc. Right there. Strawberry Plains-ish, Jefferson City, Douglas, and Cherokee Lakes. You also have Douglas Dam and Cherokee Dam. That's another story. Okay, when it comes to pricing, Jefferson County is slightly below the average. List price at $389,000. Average price per acre, $207. Average acres for sale, 4. And then when it comes to restrictions, 10% of available listings of 58 listings in the MLS I was looking at had no restrictions. So again, it is more restrictive than average comparatively to these other counties. Sevier County, you've got some little creeks and rivers. This is primarily talking specifically about the French Broad and Douglas Lake. Like I said, there's some creeks and rivers. You can see that on the picture if you're looking at it. But primarily we're talking Douglas Lake and French Broad. And then Douglas, you can see like Sevier County is just slightly Douglas, and the rest of it is pretty much, when it comes to Douglas Lake, Jefferson County. So that being said, Sevier County is going to be, when it comes to listings that are not restricted, it doesn't exist. Of all the listings that were listed, they all had restrictions. Your average list price was $184,000, but your average price per acre was $274. Average acres available 1.3, and Sevier County waterfront properties accounted for just under 2% of the overall properties available. Now, interestingly enough, the property taxes were some of the least, so I thought that was interesting for sure. I will also say that Sevier County is selling faster than the average at 209 days. Blount County. So this is Tellico, Fort Loudon, some creeks and rivers, little things like that, Little Tennessee River, that's part of Tellico. And so when you see this, if you look at the picture, you can see that the majority of the listings in Blount County are going to be along the river or Fort Loudon, which is one and the same. Essentially, when it comes to Blount County, this is one of our more expensive price for land on the water. So $781,000. This is places like Louisville. This is places like Friendsville. This is Maryville, but more Friendsville, Louisville, those are popular waterfront areas. And this is also home to parts of some of our 55 and up communities. So just want to point that out to you as well, that these are more like high dollar properties. Your average acres actually though is 10 acres, which is above average for everything we're looking at. The average acreage is 7.9. So for Blount County, the average should be 10. That's kind of significant. In terms of days on market, again, selling faster than the average at 201 days. When it comes to restrictions, actually 17% of overall listings in Blount County were not restricted, which is higher than average. So that's a positive for sure. All right, let's talk about Anderson County. So when you think Anderson County, you're thinking Oak Ridge, you're thinking Norris. Oak Ridge sits partly in Anderson and partly in Roane counties. Again, this is primarily Norris Lake that we're speaking of. You do have a little bit of river action happening, the Clinch River, etc. But for the most part, if you look at the picture of Anderson County, you're noticing that those listings are primarily on Norris Lake. The bottom of Norris Lake, but Norris Lake. So when it comes to pricing, average list price, $937,000 is the average list price. Your average acreage is just under 15. Restrictions wise, not too bad. Now there was only 7 total listings in Anderson County and 5 of those did not have restrictions. So the 71% of those listed without restrictions. So, that's a positive if you're looking for non-restrictive. I do want to tell you though that the average days on market is 326. Average days for all of these is 276. So that's quite a bit higher than a number of these counties. Now, why would that be? If there's such low inventory, why would it be taking longer to sell? My guess is that while this property is waterfront, it is also very hilly, very steep, not cleared, may not be quite as ready to build on and make something happen, might be more costly, especially considering that the average list price and average price per acre is higher than the average for all of these counties. So Anderson County a bit more expensive in terms of property taxes, also more expensive than average. So Anderson County is kind of an interesting one when it comes to pricing. It's how the property is sitting longer, but it's actually more expensive, even though it accounts for just under 2% of overall waterfront listings. All right, Roane County. So this is primarily, Roane County sits just kind of northwest-ish of Knox County. It's like you've got Knox, then Loudon, then Roane as you move west across the state. And this is primarily Watts Bar, Tennessee River. You also have Clinch River and Emory River. If you look again at the map I provided, you can see that this is all pretty much Watts Bar. Which Watts Bar, Fort Loudon, flow, Tennessee River, it all flows kind of as one. When you get out to Roane, it's more Watts Bar water. Now, when it comes to pricing, Roane County is actually less than the average list price. It's less than the average price per acre. Property taxes are higher, which I think is interesting. Average acreage at 20.3, where for all these counties, average again is at just under 8 acres. So there is more availability of land in Roane County, and also that land is less expensive than average. When it comes to restrictions, it's right on par with the average. 6 of 47 listings did not have restrictions. So, whatever, about right on average. Just, check and see. You can do what you want to do, build what you want to build. Loudon County. So Loudon County, this is Fort Loudon, Tellico / Little Tennessee River, Watts Bar. Mostly when we think about Loudon County, we're thinking Tellico, we're thinking Fort Loudon. And you can see that on the map. And then there's a pocket, if you look on the map, that's Watts Bar. Some people refer to as Fort Loudon. Technically it's Watts Bar, but you get the picture. You get the idea, okay? Now, Fort Loudon, again, is priced higher than average. Its average price per acre is higher. Its taxes are higher. Average acreage availability is less. This is one of the smaller lots available with an average of 0.98, so less than an acre on average for sale right now in Loudon County. And then get this, 0% unrestricted. So 0 listings of 56 had no restrictions. So everything listed in Loudon County had some kind of restriction. So I want to point that out to you. That being said, they're actually selling quicker than average at 246 days. So about a month sooner than what's happening on average with the rest of these counties on average again. All right, Monroe County. This is a little pocket of Tellico Lake / Little Tennessee River. You got some creeks. This is past Blount County, essentially past Loudon County. Cheaper on average by list price and price per acre. Your taxes are cheaper. Less land though, a little bit less at 6.7 acres. This is selling more quickly, significantly. So 128 days from list to being under contract in Monroe County, whereas average is 276. So that's pretty significant. And then 13% of those listed did not have restrictions. Campbell County, this is primarily Norris Lake. You can see that if you're looking at the county picture that I've shown you, Norris Lake. is the main body of water we're talking about here for Campbell County. Campbell County, average more expensive list price, but less than average price per acre. Less land on average for sale at 5.3 acres. The taxes, however, the property taxes are less expensive than average. And then 21% of those listed in Campbell County did not have restrictions, so a little bit less restrictive than the average waterfront property. Hamblen County, this is primarily going to be Cherokee Lake. There's a little teeny dot on the map. If you see, there is a small little pond, if you will, just like in Morristown, which is part of Hamblen County. And that's not an actual, I don't consider that like a lake per se, because like you can't take that anywhere. Like you can't take your boat anywhere. You're just on a pond in the neighborhood off the road. So we're talking about Cherokee Lake here. So Hamblen County, smaller lots, 0.73 acres on average. Everything has a restriction of what was currently listed. Now, that being said, lower than average list price at $78,000, and then average price per acre at $140, and then property taxes also lower than average at $343. So smaller lots, less expensive. These are taking longer to sell by about 2 months comparatively on average. Cocke County, so this is past essentially, you've got Sevier and Cocke County is part of the Great Smoky Mountains Association of Realtors. So think Newport, if you're familiar at all with that. This is a small little edge of Douglas Lake. And then you also have the French Broad and Pigeon Rivers, which are flowing through Cocke County. So a little bit of property there as well. When it comes to average acres, more than the average. When it comes to restrictions, less restrictive, 6 out of 8. So we're not talking about a ton of properties here, but 6 out of 8 did not have restrictions. So, then if we're talking about average list price, then we are talking about higher than average. Now, there was a 300-acre piece of property that I pulled out from all the averages, except when it came to the restrictions, because that's more like a one-off. So I did not include that in the average acreage, because that brought us way up. And we're already higher than average. So, just keep that in mind as well when it comes to Cocke County. Rhea County, so this is Watts Bar, Chickamauga to the south, Chickamauga River. So this is pretty far west, is pretty much as far west as we went here, but because it's partly Watts Bar, it was included. This is cheaper, list price cheaper, price per acre, cheaper property taxes, smaller lots available, 0.8 acres. These are also selling more quickly at 123 days, which that's about 4 months, right? So this is a significantly quicker turnaround time when it comes to Rhea County. And then when it comes to available listings without restrictions, 43%. Again, notice the number there. That's a very small portion, 3 out of 7 total listings of these 402 we're talking about. So it's not as if Rhea County is a huge percentage, but if you were to happen to find land in Rhea County, you can bet that it's going to be, cheaper than Knox County, etc. And Anderson, Sevier, Blount, and all those. All right, so Claiborne County. So this is Norris Powell River. Cheaper when it comes to list price per acre, and property taxes. Average acres are higher at 13.87. These are sitting on the market quite a bit longer at 324 days until from list to contract. And then 10% of those available listings were unrestricted. So less than average when it comes to available unrestricted properties. So that is Claiborne County. Grainger County, this is Cherokee. So Cherokee Lake, you've got basically Cherokee Lake kind of splits Hamblen County and Grainger County. Shout out to Grainger County tomatoes. If you know, you know. All right, Cherokee Lake, also Clinch, and a tiny little bit of Norris. If you look at the picture, you can see there's like a dot right at the top, and that's the Norris Lake water frontage. But the primary water frontage you're going to find in Grainger County is going to be Cherokee Lake water frontage. So pricing, less than average list price, less than average price per acre, less than average property taxes. Smaller property available on average at 2 acres. There were 11 total listings, which accounts for less than 3% of all the waterfront properties in general. When it comes to restrictions, 18% did not have restrictions. So, that's a positive. If some people want it to have restrictions, so you take that how you want. All right, Hawkins County. This is the top of Cherokee Lake. Pretty far east outside of Knox County. We're talking Hawkins County, we're talking Cherokee Lake properties. If we're thinking from downtown Knoxville to Hawkins County, we're thinking an hour and 15, an hour and 20, 30 minutes outside of Knoxville east. headed towards Newport, headed, east, northeast, I'll say. All right, so Hawkins County is less list price, less price per acre, less property taxes, again, lower acreage for sale. There's also just not as much waterfront land there in Hawkins County as well. And then of the available listings, only one did not have restrictions. So, some restrictions going on there, which is fine. Now, that was your rundown of all the counties we're talking about. So now let's go through and talk about list price versus average price per acre. If you see basically on this graphic with average list price and average price per acre, that blue line on all of these is going to be your average benchmark. So orange means the less desirable, green means the more desirable, and these go in order from highest to least, specifically when it comes to average list price and average price per acre. So what we find on this is that Anderson County is going to be your most expensive property overall, whereas Loudon County is going to be your most expensive when it comes to price per acre. And then we also see that, counties that are both above average, that's Anderson County, that's Knox County, that's Blount County, that's Loudon County. And then if we look on the other end of this, Sevier County is actually cheaper list price, but more expensive price per acre. So that's something to take note. And then Campbell County is also above average, but has a cheaper price per acre. So that's some comparison when it comes to pricing, overall list price and then per acre. Okay. All right, so average list price. So again, I'm gonna keep us in average list price versus price per acres because that gives us a better idea of overall pricing, bigger picture, and then days on market. So what we can see here is on the days on market, we could expect possibly these would flip, right? Because the higher the price, theoretically, the more the demand, right? Now, we like, from a sell perspective, less days on market. So if you're a seller, you want to sell something where there's less time on market, it's more desirable, basically. And again, these are all averages, and some of our sample sizes are pretty small. So again, take this all with a grain of salt. But if we notice Anderson County is our most expensive on average. Where does it fall in our days on market? We see that it's actually sitting longer days on market than average at 326. So we would expect that almost these are flipped, like the orange, what we see orange up top would be green on the bottom, right? So then if we look at like Knox County is one of our higher than average overall list price. If we look at Knox County, we can see that it's selling quicker than average. So that would make sense because more desirable. Same thing with Loudon County. If we check Campbell County, we see that Campbell County also is, first of all, it's more expensive, but it is selling more quickly than even Blount and Knox and Loudon counties. If we look at Blount, same thing, we see it's flipped. It's in the orange in price, it's in the green in days on market. So when it comes to Hamblen County, least expensive, but also it's one of the longest to sell. And then Roane County, 634 days is significantly higher. But interestingly, Roane County is almost just on par with listing prices, average. So just about average list price. So kind of interesting there. If we look at average list price versus restrictive, so basically what these percentages are saying, what percentage of these properties are unrestricted? So that's why you see Loudon, Hamblen, Sevier, Union, Claiborne, Jefferson, Hawkins, because those are basically in Loudon County, everything is restricted. So it's like an opposite amount. So that's why you see those in orange, because we're saying those are more restrictive. The average percent of houses that have restrictions or no restrictions would be 13%, and everything else is saying that more of those have less restrictions. So Cocke County, least restrictive of all of these. Monroe and Roane County right in the middle of the average. We see that Knox County, interestingly, 30% of those listed did not have restrictions. And so I just want to say, like, for example, Loudon County and Knox County are neighbors, but you can see that there's a very big difference between restrictions when it comes to Loudon County versus Knox County. Now, why would that be? Because a number of the Loudon County properties are in communities, neighborhoods with restrictions, whereas Knox County, a large number of these some are in neighborhoods, but a large number of them are just on the water somewhere. So, just thinking about if you want the restrictions, you're going to go more towards a Loudon County probably. If you want no restrictions, you're going to go more towards a Cocke County further east, on the opposite side of Knox County. All right, and then average list price versus available listings. This is going to be our last little tidbit here. So I wanted to see in general, again, with our pricing, how does our pricing go with like what's available? So again, this is where we would anticipate that the higher the list price, the less availability we have. So all I did is look, and I should have centered these on the graph, but whatever, it's too late now. Average list price, we would assume that the higher the list price, the less availability that there is. So Anderson County, actually this matches up perfectly. Anderson County is our most expensive waterfront property county, and also has just under 2% of the overall current waterfront listings available. So again, this is a snapshot in time. We're using it to help us inform the broader picture. Obviously, I could take a snapshot once a month for the next 12 months, and that would give us an overall picture. But what we're assuming is this sample is this snapshot. It's like a blood test. This is a snapshot of where we are and how things look in our market when it comes to waterfront property. So then if we look at Cocke County, we would expect Cocke County less availability, 2%. Blount County, we would expect less availability, and Blount County actually is kind of in the middle of these at just under 6% of overall waterfront listings. So not a ton, but more availability than Anderson or Sevier counties, for example. Knox County as well, just under 4% of overall waterfront listings, not a ton of listings. Again, that is, driving up price when it comes to land. And then also, Knox County is the biggest area. Like there's a Costco in Knox County. There's not a Costco anywhere else. So just that's going to be the most desirable place when it comes to like access to things. But for other people, obviously they don't want that stuff. So that's something to keep in mind as well. And then Jefferson, interestingly enough, had the most availability on average at 14%, and is also just under the average list price. So Jefferson County, you might be thinking, okay, well, I'm gonna pay kind of an average price for waterfront property in the East Tennessee area, and also I'm gonna have more options. Now, what this data does not take into consideration, because I don't wanna get too much into the rabbit hole, it doesn't take into consideration utilities. How many of these had utilities? It doesn't take into consideration. Like that could be a whole other rabbit hole, and I've already spent like 3 weeks compiling this data, and I was like, I gotta get this video out, okay? So again, it doesn't take into account utilities. It doesn't take into account terrain, topography, whatever you wanna say. It doesn't take that into account. When I say utilities, I mean water, I mean septic, I mean electricity. When I say terrain, I mean it could be straight up a hill. You may not even be able to get to the water from your build site, because here's your build site and here's the water, and like, what are you gonna do? Rappel down? I mean, I don't know. I'm not in a state to rappel down whenever I go to the lake. I mean, when I get there I am, but when I leave, maybe I'm not. You know what I'm saying? So, I just want to point that out to you as well. I also want to point out to you that not all water frontage is created equal. So this also does not take into account if these places have year-round water. And I can tell you about those on specific lake-to-lake videos. For example, parts of Douglas Lake do not have water all year, and even if you're main channel, the water drops significantly. Cherokee Lake is the same. Norris Lake is the same. Tennessee River water frontage doesn't drop as much. It's a river, right? But the water does drop, and even within Knox County, you will see a property that's for sale that has beautiful water frontage in July when you look at it. But you may not even be able to get to the river in general from that water frontage, even though it's a, little fingerling of the river. And in the winter, you may not have water at all. So you want to do your research. Obviously, I can help you do that. And I can tell you, like, another way to go about that would be to look at Google Maps and see when was the aerial picture taken. That's going to be very telling as well. So these are very broad sweeps to give us a general idea about waterfront property in the East Tennessee area. So that being said, takeaways. Anderson, Cocke, Blount, Knox, Loudon, Campbell, those are your most expensive waterfront areas, and those pretty much account for our major lakes. Loudon County, think Fort Loudon, Watts Bar. Knox County, that's Tennessee River, French Broad, Holston. Blount County, also Tennessee River, Anderson County, Norris Lake, and then we get into the Jefferson and Cherokee. Jefferson, which includes Douglas and also includes Cherokee, which would make sense why it actually has the most availability of listings, because it's got Cherokee on one end or on one side and Douglas on the other. So something interesting to consider there as well. I hope this has been helpful as always. And as always, if you have questions, let me know. If there's specific questions you have about land or some category of land, I'm going to be working on a series of these videos. So there is one out already just specifically about pricing for Knox County when it comes to land in general, but I did want to address water frontage, so that we have done that in this video. As I said, I hope this has been helpful. I'm Haley Jones. If you have questions, give me a call. You know my number, and I'll see you next time.